Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I don't show my face, but I tell real stories about corporate betrayal and workplace revenge. Today's story is about how I turned the tables on executives who thought they could steal my life's work. Grab some popcorn. This one's going to be wild. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. What they don't tell you is that sometimes it takes 3 years to get the temperature just right. My name? Well, let's just call me Alex. I'm 38, and until recently, I was the head of data architecture at Meridian Financial Services in downtown Chicago. For 8 years, I built their entire analytics infrastructure from scratch. Not that you'd know it from the company newsletter or their investor presentations. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because the devil's always in the details. I joined Meridian right after the 2008 financial crisis. Banks were hemorrhaging money. Trust was at an all-time low, and everyone was scrambling to prove they had better risk management than the next guy. Meridian was a mid-sized investment firm that had somehow survived the crash, but barely. Their data systems were held together with digital duct tape and prayers. I was supposed to be a 6-month contractor. Fix their broken reporting system, maybe streamline a few processes, then move on to the next disaster. But when I saw what they were working with, I couldn't just walk away. These people were making million-dollar decisions based on Excel spreadsheets that crashed if you looked at them wrong. The CEO back then was Margaret Chen, a brilliant woman who'd clawed her way up from junior analyst to corner office. She gave me a simple challenge. Show me what our real exposure looks like and I'll give you whatever budget you need. It took me 3 weeks of 16-hour days to dig through their mess of databases, legacy systems, and manual processes. What I found should have terrified them. They were massively over-leveraged in tech stocks, had no real-time risk monitoring, and their compliance reporting was basically fiction. I created a presentation that probably saved the company. Not just the pretty charts and graphs, but a complete overhaul plan that would give them real-time analytics, predictive modeling, and automated compliance reporting. Margaret looked at it for exactly 47 minutes, then asked me one question. How long will this take? 2 years if you want it done right, I told her. You've got 18 months and unlimited resources, she replied. Make it happen. That was the beginning of the best period of my professional life. I hired a team of brilliant analysts, data scientists, and engineers. People like Sarah Martinez, who could make SQL databases sing opera, and Kevin Wu, who understood machine learning algorithms better than most people understand their own names. We called ourselves the Data Knights. Yeah, I know it sounds cheesy, but we were proud of what we were building. The system we created was beautiful. Real-time risk monitoring across every portfolio, predictive models that could spot market trends weeks before they hit, and automated reporting that turned what used to be a 3-day process into a 15-minute task. We called it Oracle, Optimized Risk Analysis and Compliance Ledger Engine. Oracle wasn't just software. It was a living, breathing intelligence system that understood Meridian's business better than most of the executives. It could predict which clients were likely to increase their investments, which market sectors were about to shift, and most importantly, when the firm was taking on too much risk. The results were immediate. Meridian's returns improved by 23% in the first year. Client retention went up to 94%. We avoided 3 major market downturns that wiped out our competitors because Oracle saw them coming. The regulatory compliance audits that used to take weeks and cost hundreds of thousands in consultant fees? Oracle handled them automatically. Margaret was ecstatic. At the company holiday party in 2015, she stood up and announced that our data architecture had directly contributed to the best year in company history. Alex and the Data Knights, she said, raising her glass, have given us the gift of seeing the future. I thought I'd found my career home. The work was challenging, the team was incredible, and the results spoke for themselves. I even bought a condo in Lincoln Park, something I never thought I'd be able to afford. For the first time in my life, I felt truly valued. The first crack appeared in early 2018. Margaret announced she was stepping down as CEO to pursue other opportunities. The board replaced her with Bradley Morrison, a hotshot from Goldman Sachs, who came with a reputation for aggressive growth and cost-cutting. Bradley was everything Margaret wasn't. Where she was thoughtful, he was impulsive. Where she valued long-term stability, he wanted immediate results. His first all-hands meeting was memorable for all the wrong reasons. "We're going to transform Meridian into a lean, mean, profit-generating machine," he announced, clicking through slides full of corporate buzzwords. "That means eliminating redundancies, streamlining operations, and embracing innovative solutions." I should have seen the writing on the wall when he started talking about right-sizing the technical teams. The changes came gradually at first. My budget got trimmed by 15% to encourage efficiency. Our weekly leadership meetings became monthly, then quarterly. When I tried to discuss necessary system upgrades, Bradley would nod politely and change the subject to something about maximizing synergies. The real red flag came when a consulting firm started showing up. Crawford and Associates, a boutique outfit that specialized in digital transformation. Their lead consultant was a guy named Marcus Webb, mid-30s, expensive suits, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having built anything yourself. Marcus started asking detailed questions about Oracle. How it worked, what made it unique, who had access to the core algorithms. He framed it as understanding our technical assets for optimization purposes. But something felt off. I'd been in this business long enough to recognize due diligence when I saw it. I scheduled a meeting with Bradley to express my concerns. His office had been completely redecorated. Gone was Margaret's warm, lived-in feel, replaced with stark modern furniture and abstract art that probably cost more than my annual salary. "Alex, I appreciate your dedication," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "But part of leadership is knowing when to trust the experts. Crawford and Associates comes highly recommended." "I am the expert," I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "Oracle is my system. I built it specifically for our needs." "And you did excellent work," he said, finally looking at me. "But we need to think bigger. Scale. Enterprise solutions." That's when I knew. They weren't looking to optimize Oracle. They were looking to replace it. And probably me along with it. I started paying closer attention. Marcus was spending an unusual amount of time with our junior developers, asking them to walk through the system architecture. He requested copies of all our documentation for the assessment. Most telling, he was asking questions about which parts of Oracle could function independently. They were reverse engineering my life's work. I tried to be smart about it. Started documenting everything. The meetings Marcus had with my team, the questions he was asking, the access he was requesting. I even began quietly backing up the original source code to a secure server I maintained separately from the company systems. That backup server was something I'd set up in my first year at Meridian, originally just as a disaster recovery measure. It lived in a data center across town, paid for out of my own pocket, containing clean copies of all my original code and development notes. It had saved us twice when the main servers crashed, but I'd never told anyone else about it. Call it paranoia, but in the tech world, redundancy is everything. The end came faster than I expected. I was called into Bradley's office on a Tuesday morning in March. Marcus was there, along with the head of HR and a lawyer I didn't recognize. "Alex, we've made a difficult decision," Bradley began, using the tone people reserve for delivering terminal diagnoses. "As part of our organizational restructuring, we're going to be transitioning your role." "Transitioning to whom?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Crawford and Associates will be handling our data architecture needs going forward," he continued. "They're bringing in their own team, people with experience in modern enterprise solutions." I looked at Marcus, who had the decency to avoid eye contact. "And Oracle will be maintained and improved by the new team," the lawyer interjected smoothly. "Your employment contract clearly states that all systems developed during your tenure are company property." The HR director slid a separation agreement across the desk. "We're prepared to offer a generous severance package, 6 months' salary, extended health benefits, and a positive reference." I scanned the document quickly. Standard non-compete clause, non-disclosure agreement, and buried in the legal language, a complete waiver of any claims to intellectual property. I'll need time to review this with my attorney. That night, I sat in my condo looking out at Lake Michigan, trying to process what had happened. My phone buzzed constantly. Text messages from my team members who'd heard rumors, emails from colleagues at other firms offering sympathy and job leads. But I couldn't focus on any of it. Instead, I found myself thinking about Oracle. Not just the code, but the architecture, the elegant solutions to complex problems, the way all the pieces fit together. It wasn't just software to me, it was art. It was proof that I was good at something that mattered, and they thought they could just take it. I spent the next week consulting with attorneys. The first three gave me the same basic advice. The employment contract was airtight. Meridian owned everything I'd built while working there, and my best option was to take the severance and move on. The fourth attorney, Jennifer Walsh, was different. She specialized in intellectual property disputes in the tech sector, and she actually took the time to understand what Oracle was and how it worked. The contract is clear about work for hire, she told me over coffee at a downtown cafe. But there are some interesting questions here. You said you developed the core algorithms before joining Meridian. The foundation, yes. I'd been working on risk analysis models since graduate school. The specific application to their business was new, but the underlying mathematical framework was mine. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. And you mentioned maintaining a separate development server? I explained about the backup system, how it contained not just current code, but the entire development history, including my original pre-Meridian work. That could be significant, she said. If you can prove that key components of Oracle were based on your prior work, we might have grounds to challenge their ownership claims. It wasn't much, but it was something. While Jennifer worked on the legal angles, I started my own investigation. I wanted to understand exactly what Crawford and Associates was planning to do with Oracle. Through contacts in the industry, I learned that Marcus Webb wasn't just a consultant. He was a partner in a new fintech startup called NextGen Analytics. NextGen was developing something called Enterprise Risk Intelligence Platform, which sounded suspiciously like a generic version of Oracle. They were in the middle of raising Series A funding, and their investor pitch deck, which someone accidentally forwarded to me, contained screenshots that looked remarkably familiar. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about cutting costs or bringing in outside expertise. Crawford and Associates wasn't replacing Oracle, they were stealing it. The consulting contract was just a cover to gain access to the system, reverse engineer it, and then rebuild it as their own product. Meanwhile, things at Meridian were not going well. My former team members were calling with increasingly desperate updates. The transition to Crawford's team was a disaster. The new consultants didn't understand how Oracle's various components integrated with each other. They were making changes to the code without understanding the implications. Sarah Martinez called me 3 weeks after my departure, sounding exhausted. They broke the real-time monitoring system, she told me, tried to optimize the database queries, and ended up creating a feedback loop that crashed the servers. How bad? I asked. We were offline for 6 hours yesterday. Cost the firm about $2 million in trading opportunities, and the compliance system is generating false positives on everything. Kevin Wu confirmed the worst of it when he called a few days later. They don't understand the machine learning models at all, he said. They're treating Oracle like it's just a fancy spreadsheet program. The predictive algorithms are basically useless now. I felt a mixture of vindication and sadness. These people didn't just want to replace me. They wanted to replace me with something inferior. All those years of careful development, of understanding Meridian's specific needs and building elegant solutions were being undone by consultants who saw only code to be copied. That's when I decided to fight back. Not with lawyers or lawsuits, but with the one thing they couldn't replicate: deep understanding of what Oracle actually was. You see, while they had access to the current version of Oracle running on Meridian's servers, what they didn't know was that the system had several layers of dependency on external data sources and validation routines. Some of these were obvious: market data feeds, regulatory databases, things like that. But others were more subtle. Oracle had been designed with what I called distributed intelligence. Key algorithmic components didn't just rely on the main database, but cross-referenced information from multiple sources to validate their calculations. It was more secure and more accurate than having everything in one place, but it also meant that disabling the right external connections could cripple the entire system. And I controlled most of those external connections. Remember that backup server I mentioned? It wasn't just storing old code. Over the years, it had evolved into a supplementary processing node that Oracle used for certain advanced calculations. The main system would send requests to my server for complex risk modeling, and my server would send back the results. From Meridian's perspective, it just looked like Oracle was doing its job. They had no idea that some of the most critical functions were actually running on hardware they didn't own. It was completely legal. The connection was documented in the technical specifications, buried on page 847 of the system manual, and I'd never tried to hide it. I'd even mentioned it in several meetings over the years. But like most executives, they'd never bothered to understand the technical details. Now Crawford's team was reverse engineering a system they thought was self-contained, not realizing that about 30% of its core functionality was actually running somewhere else. Their stolen version of Oracle would work fine for basic tasks, but the moment they tried to use the advanced features, the ones that made Oracle truly valuable, it would fail spectacularly. I decided to be patient, let them think they'd succeeded, let them get comfortable with their stolen system. And then, at exactly the right moment, I'd remind them that some things can't be copied. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Through my network of former colleagues, I learned that Meridian was preparing for their biggest client presentation of the year. Cromwell Industries, a massive manufacturing conglomerate, was considering moving their entire investment portfolio to Meridian. It was a potential $500 million account, the kind of client that could transform the firm's entire trajectory. The presentation was scheduled for September 15th, exactly 6 months after my departure. Bradley was planning to showcase Oracle's capabilities as the centerpiece of Meridian's technological superiority. According to my sources, he'd been bragging to other executives about how the new, enhanced system was even better than what they'd had before. Perfect. I spent August preparing. Not sabotage, I want to be clear about that. I wasn't planning to destroy anything or cause permanent damage. I was simply going to exercise my right to discontinue a service that I'd been providing for free. On September 10th, 5 days before the Cromwell presentation, I sent a certified letter to Bradley Morrison and the Meridian Legal Department. The letter was brief and professional. Please be advised that as of September 15th, 2019, I will be discontinuing the supplementary data processing services provided through my private server infrastructure. This decision is effective immediately following the expiration of the current service period. Please ensure that your systems are configured to operate independently of any external dependencies. The letter included complete technical documentation of which Oracle functions relied on my server, detailed instructions for migrating those processes to Meridian's internal systems, and even offered to provide consulting services to assist with the transition. I sent copies to Jennifer Walsh and kept detailed records of everything. If anyone later claimed I'd acted maliciously, I had proof that I'd given them fair warning and offered to help. Of course, 5 days wasn't nearly enough time to rebuild the affected systems, especially since Crawford's team still didn't fully understand how Oracle worked. But that wasn't my problem. September 15th was a beautiful Chicago morning. I spent it at Navy Pier, watching the boats on Lake Michigan and checking my phone periodically. I'd written a simple monitoring script that would show me when Meridian's system stopped sending requests to my server. The first failed request started appearing at 9:47 a.m., right when the markets opened and Oracle tried to run its morning risk assessment. By 10:15, my server logs showed a massive spike in error messages as Meridian systems desperately tried to connect to processes that were no longer running. My phone started ringing at 10:23. Bradley Morrison, calling from what sounded like a very chaotic conference room. "Alex, what the hell is going on? Our systems are crashing." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied calmly. "Did you receive my letter from last week?" Silence on the line, then muffled conversations in the background. "You can't just shut down our systems," he finally said. "I'm not shutting down your systems. I'm discontinuing a service that I've been providing at my own expense. As I mentioned in my letter, I offered to help with the transition. The presentation is in 2 hours. Then I suggest you contact Crawford and Associates. I'm sure their enterprise solution can handle it. I hung up and turned off my phone. Whatever was happening at Meridian, I didn't want to be a part of it. I found out later what had happened. The Cromwell presentation was a complete disaster. Oracle's advanced features, the real-time risk modeling, the predictive analytics, the automated portfolio optimization, all failed spectacularly. The system kept generating error messages instead of the impressive demonstrations Bradley had promised. Marcus Webb and his team scrambled to explain why their enhanced system was producing gibberish instead of insights. They tried to blame it on temporary technical difficulties, but the Cromwell executives weren't impressed. According to my sources, the lead client walked out of the presentation after the third system crash. Meridian lost the account. More importantly, word got around the industry that their much-vaunted analytics platform was unreliable. Within a month, 2 other major clients had moved their portfolios to competitors. Bradley Morrison was quietly asked to resign in November. The board brought in an interim CEO and launched an internal investigation into what had gone wrong with their digital transformation initiative. Meanwhile, I'd been busy. Using the separation agreement money and some of my savings, I'd incorporated my own company, Prometheus Analytics. The name felt appropriate. After all, I was bringing fire to the people. My first client was Cromwell Industries. Apparently, they were still interested in the kind of advanced risk modeling they'd been promised at Meridian. I developed a cleanroom version of the risk analysis algorithms, built from the ground up using my original pre-Meridian research, but enhanced with everything I'd learned in the intervening years. The new system was called ATHENA, Advanced Tactical Hedging and Economic Numerical Analysis. It did everything Oracle had done, but better. Faster processing, more sophisticated models, and most importantly, it belonged entirely to me. Sarah Martinez was my first hire, then Kevin Wu. Within 6 months, half of my old team had joined Prometheus Analytics. Not because I poached them, I was very careful about that, but because they were tired of watching their work be destroyed by consultants who didn't understand it. Crawford and Associates tried to sue me for stealing proprietary algorithms, but Jennifer Walsh made short work of that. We had documentation proving that the core mathematical models were based on my pre-Meridian research, and there was no way to prove that Athena was derived from Oracle rather than from the same underlying principles. The real vindication came a year later. Prometheus Analytics had grown to 12 employees and was serving 8 major clients. Our revenue was growing 40% quarter over quarter, and we were getting inquiries from firms all across the country. I was having lunch at a small cafe in the Loop when I spotted Bradley Morrison at a corner table. He looked older, tired, and was wearing a suit that had seen better days. I debated whether to approach him, then decided I had nothing to lose. "Bradley," I said, walking over to his table. "How are you doing?" He looked up, and for a moment I saw something like relief in his eyes. "Alex, I heard about your company. Congratulations." "Thank you." I sat down without being invited. "I heard you're at Hartfield and Associates now?" He nodded. "Director of Business Development. It's different from running a firm, but it pays the bills." We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then he said, "I owe you an apology." I raised an eyebrow. "I thought I knew better," he continued. "Thought we could improve on what you'd built with outside help. I was wrong." "What happened to Crawford and Associates?" I asked. Bradley's expression darkened. "Next-Gen Analytics went under about 6 months ago. Turns out their revolutionary platform was mostly smoke and mirrors. Marcus Webb is selling insurance in Phoenix now." I couldn't help but smile at that. "The board blamed me for the Cromwell disaster," Bradley continued. "Said I'd destroyed the firm's technological advantage chasing buzzwords and consultant promises." He looked at me directly. They were right. "For what it's worth," I said, "I never wanted Meridian to fail. I just wanted recognition for what I'd built." "You got it," he replied. "Just not from us." We talked for another few minutes about industry trends, mutual acquaintances, the usual small talk. As I got up to leave, Bradley said, "Alex, for whatever it's worth, what you built at Meridian was remarkable. I should have recognized that." I nodded. "These things happen, Bradley. We all make mistakes." Walking back to my office, I reflected on how different things had turned out from what I'd expected. I'd thought my story would end with a legal victory or a dramatic confrontation. Instead, it ended with a quiet conversation over coffee and the satisfaction of knowing that good work speaks for itself. Prometheus Analytics continued to grow. We moved into a beautiful office space overlooking the Chicago River, hired more brilliant people, and kept building better solutions for complex problems. Athena evolved into a comprehensive financial intelligence platform that was being used by firms across 3 continents. But the best part wasn't the success or the money or even the vindication. It was the realization that what I'd thought was the end of my career was actually just the beginning. Being forced out of Meridian had freed me to build something better, something that was truly mine. Sometimes I still think about Oracle, the system I'd poured 8 years of my life into building. According to my sources, Meridian eventually scrapped it entirely and licensed a generic risk management platform from one of the big software companies. It does the job, apparently, but without any of the elegance or sophistication that made Oracle special. That's fine by me. Oracle was tied to a specific time and place, built for people who ultimately didn't value it. Athena is something different, a system built for clients who understand what good architecture is worth, maintained by a team that takes pride in their work. 6 months ago, I got an unexpected email. Margaret Chen, my original boss at Meridian, had started her own investment advisory firm and was interested in talking about our services. We met at the same downtown cafe where Bradley and I had our last conversation. "I always knew you'd land on your feet," she told me over coffee. "What they did to you was unconscionable." "It worked out for the best," I replied, and I meant it. "I have a proposition," she said. "My new firm is small, but we're growing. We need exactly the kind of sophisticated analytics that made Meridian successful." "Interested in a long-term partnership?" I smiled. "Margaret, I thought you'd never ask." We shook hands on a deal that would make Prometheus Analytics the exclusive technology partner for Chen Capital Management. It was a perfect fit, a brilliant financial mind paired with cutting-edge analytics technology, both parties committed to building something that would last. As I write this, it's been 3 years since my last day at Meridian. Prometheus Analytics has 26 employees, offices in Chicago and New York, and a client list that includes some of the most prestigious names in finance. Athena has been featured in industry publications, won several technology awards, and is being studied by researchers at major universities. But more than that, I've learned something important about value and recognition. You can't force people to appreciate what you've built, but you can make sure that those who do appreciate it are the ones you're building for. The corporate world is full of Bradley Morrisons, people who think they can improve on expertise they don't understand, who mistake confidence for competence and consultants for solutions. They'll always exist, and they'll always make the same mistakes. The key is not letting them define your worth. Every morning, I walk into an office filled with people who are passionate about solving complex problems elegantly. We're building systems that help our clients make better decisions, manage risk more effectively, and ultimately serve their own clients better. It's work that matters, done by people who understand its value. That's what real success looks like. Not the corner office or the impressive title, but the satisfaction of doing work you're proud of with people you respect. And if someone doesn't appreciate what you bring to the table, well, there are other tables, better tables, tables where your contributions are valued and your expertise is recognized. Sometimes you have to burn a few bridges to find the right road. But once you do, the journey is worth it. Thanks for watching today's story, everyone. If you enjoyed this tale of corporate karma, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about workplace justice. And remember, know your worth, protect your work, and never let anyone convince you that your expertise is replaceable. Sometimes the best revenge is simply building something better. I'll see you in the next one.